Hey there, toy lovers. Welcome back to Richard's Toy Room once again. Today, we're back to toys. So, what we have here is what is called talk-ups. These were put out in the early 70s by Mattel, who was famous for all their pull-string talking toys. I actually have another one of these that's pretty close to mint. As you can see, there's a little difference in color. This Casper is yellowed, and this one still has his original holder, whatever you want to call it, string, wristband, I don't know. It's kind of like just a piece of vinyl that's stuck in the back, and most of the talk-ups did have that. And I guess you're supposed to hold them by the string. I usually hold them by the head, and then what happens is their body you pull down on instead of like the little ring for the string.
Will you play with me? Will you play with me? I'm a friendly ghost.
Now this one, even though it looks good, it does have one phrase that's kind of messed up. It like must have like a little skip or something in the record, and but besides that, it's like almost perfect. So what I was attempting to do was I was attempting to replace it with one that actually did work. I got a deal on this one. Unfortunately, when I got it, it doesn't talk. And the worst part of these is they're glued together. I was going to say if you remember my other video, but I still haven't finished it. I did one of the large, early first Mattel. In fact, there was a Casper in that line in the first three Mattel talking figures, and they're big stuffed dolls with big plastic heads just like this, glued together. And the only way to get in there to fix anything is to crack this head open. Now, unfortunately, sometimes the results are just not what you really would expect. Now, I already did get into this and figure out what's wrong with it and figure out a fix for it, so that saves me time making this video for you, so I don't have to fuss around and, by chance lose interest, and 3 years later, we're finishing it. But I know what's wrong with this, and I will show you, and I will show you what I figured out to fix it. Now, it's not going to be perfect, because the part that is broken is not something that's easily available, and it's kind of something that's a little difficult to reproduce. But you'll see when I get into that. So basically what I did was I took liquid plastic bonding glue, and I went around this seam, and I went around it, and went around it, and went around, trying to weaken the original glue, hoping that I could eventually break that bond with the least amount of damage as possible. And for the most part, I was pretty successful. And what I ended up doing was, at first I tried down here by the hole, I tried prying a little bit with a screwdriver, but that was not looking good. It started chipping off pieces of the plastic. Well, once I had tiny little piece chipped off, I was like, oh, no, I'm not doing this. So what I ended up doing was, I remember watching a video where a guy took, I think it was a He-Man or something, and he took it out to his garage with a hammer, and he whacked it. And I didn't want a chance smashing this, but I thought I could think of something similar. So what I did was, as I was doing that with the glue, and I was kind of going around it a little bit right at the seam and kind of trying to make like a little score so that if I was able to crack it, perhaps I'd luck out and the plastic would follow my scored line. So what I actually did was I held it in my hand like an egg, and I took a D battery, pretty heavy, sort of like a hammer, but a lot, I don't want to say softer, but it's round and it's kind of, and I was doing it harder than that. I kept doing it, put more glue on, kept doing it, doing the knife, glue, and eventually I got it to start, I could see the seam starting to open. So I just kept going and going. About half of it came out along the seam, and the other half kind of just missed it. But once you glue this back together with that this stuff here, I've showed you it 1,000 times. This is basically for this kind of plastic, and it melts it back together just like a styrene model. And you'll barely even know that that was cracked once it's all bonded back together. You can like sand it a little bit with some really, really like maybe 3,000 grit sandpaper, and then take some of this stuff. This is exactly what I'm going to do when I'm all done. This is the Meguiar Scratch X. It's basically like a plastic polish. Just go over the head, shine it up. I'll probably take a Mr. Clean Eraser to the body. It's not the same material. It's more of a vinyl, a hard vinyl. And I'll clean that up. I usually will dull this, so then I'll again go over it with this, shine it up. And hopefully when I'm all done, oh, there's also one other step in that. Hopefully when I'm all done, he'll look like this guy. And I'll probably recreate that red strap, but I don't think I have any vinyl of that color, so we'll see what I have lying around. I might even just use a ribbon. But anyway, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to brighten the white, get the yellow out of this, and see if I can make him look as close to that other one as possible. So, next step, since like I said, I already cracked him open. Here's the speaker in the back. That should give you a little kind of clue as to what's wrong with this. So you pop them open, and this is what you got inside. Your kind of basic, you see I did a pretty good job cracking it open. See how white he is inside? This is the speaker, and this is all the pieces of the speaker that went around the rim that were basically inside of this. And there's also a spring in there that goes in the back of the speaker and then into here. This post here was also broken. I took a piece of sprue off of a plastic model kit and I glued that on. So basically it's going to go, now it actually won't fall off of there. See, then this gets pushed down in like that. But the problem I had was, how am I going to replace this speaker? So I racked my brain, and I just happened to be sitting there, and I had an old Mego, not old, but the thing that glued to the card, the bubble, and I thought, hey, maybe I could cut the center out of it, and I used that to make sort of a new speaker. But unfortunately, it has to kind of go down into this hole here, and it wasn't really holding, and I don't know, it just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do right. So I came up with another idea, and what I did was I cut, I don't know if you can see these, you can probably only see them because of the magic marker that's still kind of remnant on them. I cut 2 rings. So one that will fit behind the speaker like this, and that kind of keeps it from falling, back into this cavity when it's kind of pushed back from the talkie device here. And then the other one is a little bigger, and it's actually the same size as this. So this will kind of stay on here. We're doing the reflections, you can actually kind of see what I'm showing you. And this will go on top of the speaker here. And that'll keep it from, I'm not sure what it'll keep it from doing, but originally it went out to the edge of this thing, all this part here. And I just wanted to make sure that I think it partially was maybe keeping the needle here from maybe popping off. I don't know. But I did test it already, and it works, but it's not as loud as the original. Obviously, it's just not as, it's a repair. But hey, the important part is it works. So I have to clean this all up. The needle's all filthy. The record's all filthy. Actually, as far as I know, maybe this one never was loud. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Maybe this one's worn out or something. I don't know. But anyway, it does have to be cleaned up. Maybe that'll help a little bit. Maybe it won't. And but first thing I got to do is go put some of that peroxide on this and put it out in the sun. And we'll see if we can get this white before we go starting to put everything back together. All right, so this took about 4 treatments in the sun, but this is basically, whoops, well, I guess I can show you this. If you can remember kind of what it looked like before, but it was a lot yellower than this one, and I think they're pretty darn close now. I mean, it's not perfect. It's still a little off. I maybe could have done another treatment, but I was getting tired of it. And I think it's good enough. So I have to touch up his tongue, which it was already coming off, but a little bit more came off while I was cleaning it. So that's not a big deal. So I did find some, weirdly enough, I found like this old red vinyl bag. It's pretty old, so I'm kind of debating whether or not I want to cut it up for this, for make a strap out of it, because there's nothing wrong with it. So I don't know if I'm going to put a strap back on it or not, but the way that you do it is you put it through this hole here from the inside, and then just tie a knot in it. This is what was left of the old one. This is the end of it. It was in here. It was probably part of the problem too. So I already cleaned the record, needle, the speaker. So now basically all we have to do is put it back together, glue and sand the seam, and then polish it up. Oh, and I also have to clean the body. It's still dirty. I didn't do that yet. So I think I showed you everything I did in the last segment. I had to rebuild this pin in here for the spring. So this is probably going to take me a few attempts to get it back together, so I'll do it off camera, and then I'll show you as I put it all, as I assemble it. I'm thinking what I might actually do before I put the speaker in is I might glue the one underneath ring to the speaker so it's kind of still attached to it, so it maybe makes the speaker a little bit more like it was. And that might take time to dry. So we'll be back. Okay, that was quite a challenge. So you have to have about 5 hands. So basically, I got the speaker in there, put the spring in, speaker. I put my 2 washers on either side of the speaker. Again, as I showed you in the first segment, didn't come with it, but I kind of made it to kind of keep this speaker from popping out of its little chamber in there, hopefully, and not interfere with anything else too. So then the other thing you got to do is you got to get this perfectly inside this here. Once you get it in there and working, you may want to maybe go around and give it just a, kind of maybe a few dots of super glue or something to keep it from popping out, because it's not fun to do this. Now the other thing is, pull this out. If you can see in here, there's a little ferrule. It's kind of hard to show on the camera here, but it's right where the little hole in the head is. It's a brass ferrule that the string goes through. You have to have that, and it's not right now. Okay, there it is. Right here, that little brass tube, ferrule, whatever you want to call it, that has to come out of the head when you're done. And the other part of the head here has a little thing that sticks out right here, and that should, I might have lost a little bit of it while I was taking it apart, but that should keep this from going back down in. I may have to go back in here and put some plastic or glue or something to keep that ferrule from popping back through. I mean, I don't know if it'll not work if I do that, but I think that's to kind of keep you from rubbing the string on the plastic and cutting it. So anyway, just want to show you that you got to get that everything all in together at once before you can put the head back together. And well, as you can see, it's not as loud as the original because, you know, my kind of concoction speaker there, but you can see it does work, and that's the most important thing. So let me get this back together and we'll come back. All right, so I got the head back together, so I'm going to use this bonding plastic bonder to glue the seam back together. Try not to spill it on everything like I just did, because it will soften the plastic. Best way to do this is to put it on and then squeeze. It dries in seconds. But what this does is softens the plastic and actually bonds it back together, as it's called, bonding. But if you can, it's best to do a couple sections at a time since it dries so fast. When you squeeze it, you can kind of see the plastic kind of oozing where it's melting it back together. Melting it, that's a good word. You could also put a rubber band on this if you want to let it sit and really take hold, but I think you're probably okay with this. And I don't think this glue will affect this body or the string, but I'm still trying not to get it on it. But so now what you're going to do is let this dry, and then take some really fine sandpaper, like this, which is 2000 grit. You can even go more than that if you want. And then you're going to want to just go over this. It's still a little too soft to do it right now, but that's basically what you're going to want to do. You want to go over this and sand it real nice, and then polish it. I'll clean up this body and touch up his tongue, and then we'll come and take a look at the completely finished figure. And welcome back to the Casper finale. So, I was going to ask if you can tell which one's which, but I didn't put a string on this one, which is the one we fixed. I don't know, what do you think? I think it came out pretty damn good. Whitened up nice. The only thing I couldn't get really too clean was the body, for some reason, wouldn't whiten up as... Well, I didn't whiten it, but I mean, I thought it was just dirt, but it must be just kind of discolored. Anyway, be honest, I didn't really want to cut up that vintage bag I was talking about. It's right here. It's like the same kind of vinyl, but it's all intact and there's nothing wrong with it, and I just really didn't want to destroy it, even though it's probably not worth anything. So I kind of didn't bother putting the string back on it. It doesn't matter. Most of the time they're missing on these anyway. But anyhow, so pretty happy with the finished product, except, the finished repair, except for the fact that I wish I could have had a better way of repairing that speaker. Maybe in the future I might run across something that might work better, or maybe there's, something else that I could cannibalize a speaker out of that would fit, but it's not that I'm planning on doing a whole lot of these, and I'm not doing it over. But to show you the difference, here's our repaired one. And of course the original one, which sounds much louder.
I'm a friendly ghost.
But it works. So it still has issues. This one, even though it does talk, I think one of the phrases, it's missing a section of it, and this one has like a skip in it. I'm not taking it apart to just fix the skip. So like it plays one phrase and then it kind of skips to the end of another phrase. But what are you going to do? Sometimes you can fix those by, holding the needle down as it passes through that bad part, but that's just a lot of work for very little return. So why don't we see if we can get Casper, the good Casper, to say all his phrases. This will require some ingenuity in the editing. Alright, so he's supposed to say 8 things. Let's see if we can get him to say all 8.
Can you make a spooky sound? I'm a friendly ghost. Let's play ghost. Tell me a ghost yourself.
That's the one where it skips. It's supposed to say, tell me a ghost story, and it skips.
Hi, I'm Casper. Oh, I scared myself. Will you play with me?
One more.